As we go through life, most of us try so hard to avoid the inevitable, fear. But there are a few brave souls that seek only fear, like those of you who clicked this video tonight. For that, I thank you. But by the end, you may not thank me. So lock your doors, bar your windows, turn out the lights, and prepare for the Dynamo by The Shadow. Now relax, this won't hurt too much. Percy had been working since the age of 14, when he first began a job at a hamburger stand. He managed to work and finish school at the same time and build up a hefty savings account, so when the time came for college, he would have been able to pay for his entire course twice, but his marks in school earned him a full scholarship. Percy continued to work well in college, and after graduation, he landed a job for an investment firm based out of Detroit. 10 years later, he never slowed down one bit. After many raises, Percy was making enough to afford everything you could think of, but he was very modest with his wealth. He lived in a crappy apartment, drove a crappy car, you name it. He wasn't stingy with his money, though. His paychecks were always divided. 30% went to a good cause, 50% went to savings, and the remaining 20% went to the expenses, which more than covered him for the month. Percy sat in the employee lounge, eating his lunch and listening to the muted conversations of his coworkers around him. He didn't pay much mind to them, more focused on the sandwich in front of him. There had been talk around the office of one of Percy's coworkers, Fred, being next on the firing line. His performance had been poor for the entire time Fred worked there. Little did Percy know, Fred had a major grudge against him. Fred thought that Percy was just trying to be an apple polisher, that he was better than everyone else, etc. Percy was back at his desk, fingers flowing over the computer keyboard at an almost impossible speed. This week's reports were already finished, and so Percy decided to continue with next week's reports to pass the time. Fred sat in the cubicle adjacent to Percy, staring at a video of screaming goats with a smile on his face. The video ended and Fred removed his headphones, and that was when his smile vanished as he heard the rapid keystrokes coming from Percy's cubicle. "Fucking butt kisser," Fred muttered under his breath as the anger in him brought on by Percy's persistence pervaded once again. Opening the filing drawer under his desk, Fred pushed the files aside to reveal a small knife hidden amongst all the incomplete work, grabbed it, and closed the drawer once again. He set the knife down beside his keyboard and began to ponder. Could I really go through with this? Fred opened up a Word document on his computer and began typing the pros and cons and the best way to carry out the deed, as to sound as if he were working instead of just sitting there contemplating murder. Percy took a break from his work to sip his coffee, and that's when Fred knew his only chance was to commit the deed. Quietly rising from his chair and grabbing the knife, Fred walked over to Percy's cubicle, and without hesitation plunged the knife deep into Percy's stomach. After a moment of hesitation, Percy looked up at Fred, smiling. Fred looked bewildered at Percy's act of smiling when the average person would probably be grimacing with pain or looking furious, but no, perfect Percy just sat there smiling like a moron.
Thanks.
What the hell's wrong with you? Why are you thanking me?
Do you speak any Latin?
No. What's your problem? Seriously, dude, you're messed up.
You know what the word maledictus means?
No, and if you don't shut the hell up, I'll put this knife in your throat.
Cursed. You are my hero.
Percy's last phrase ended with a gurgle as Fred yanked the knife from Percy's stomach and stabbed it into his throat roughly. After a moment of silence, the previous events began to run through Fred's mind. What did he mean by cursed? At that moment, the realization hit him like a ton of bricks. Percy didn't want to be the Dynamo, but had no choice. The Dynamo curse was passed upon the event of death, and Fred's fate was a far worse one than that of Percy.